Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm, and you are watching fourth part of What If Naruko Hide Her True Self. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The castle, the night of the chunin exams. Naruko looked into a hole. From there, she could see that Kingu was helping Menma work hard. After Menma proved himself to his sister, Kushina gave him some of her scrolls for Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu. This just showed the blonde boy how far behind he was and how much the old Hokage was keeping from him. The old man said that most of Minato and Kushina's things had been thrown away or locked up. Clearly, all of them were locked up and meant to stay there until the Hokage thought Menma was loyal. Disgusting. Naruko muttered when she had this idea. After a moment, Anna kneeled down in front of Naruko and said, "Mildred." "Yes, Anna? Do you have news about Lil Roxas?" Naruko asked. Anna nodded and said, "Roxas-sama is getting better and is still trying to get used to his new body." The plan that Tsunade made worked. After more than a week, the boy in the container was no longer dependent on it. Naruko gave the boy the name Roxas. He was just born, so he was still having trouble getting used to the world. He is currently watching life. So even simple things like breathing and walking are strange to him. Oh, I see. I hope the boy can get used to things soon. Even so, it is still not safe for him to go outside. Naruko said with a sad sigh. She told Anna, "I know he wants to live life to the fullest, but I can't handle him being in danger." "Mildred, family is most important. You do the right thing by putting your family first." Anna said something before she realized she was talking instead of thinking. "Pardon me, milady." She said, "I shouldn't talk out of place." Naruko stood up and put her hand on the girl's shoulder. "There's nothing wrong with the way you think, Anna. You had lost everyone before I found you," she told him. "Now, we have to do some last-minute things to get ready for tomorrow's tests," she said as Anna nodded. "Yes, ma'am," said Anna, who had to get ready for the worst to happen tomorrow. Including Kingu and Menma. "Keep it light, Menma-san. You have to study for your tests tomorrow, even though Orochimaru is getting in the way. You should be ready for the worst to happen." As Kingu watched Menma fight the golems that Naruko had sent for Menma to fight, he said. Menma started to get tired after killing the last one, so he put his sword away. "That makes me think. Our most recent trip was to Uzushiogakure. We'd seen a lot of plans, and I think what we've made is pretty good. You might be interested in this." Kingu said this as he took out a storage scroll and showed what was inside. The weapon itself was a strange-looking sword with a trigger-shaped guard and handle. As if the goal was to make it look like a gun. On the silver part of the blade, there was a black outline of a lion that stuck out. The fierce and beautiful animal was waiting for its friend to join them in battle. "What's that?" Menma asked. "We call this the gunblade. We still don't know much about the weapon and what it can do. But Naruko-sama thinks you can figure it out and bring honor to your family name." As he gave it to Menma, Kingu said. The blonde boy nodded and said, "I can do it." As he picked up the sword and raised it high into the air. "All right. I think you should rest for now. As I said, there are many dangers tomorrow, and there's no reason to tire yourself out or risk getting hurt," Kingu said before leaving. Menma sighed, "Tomorrow will be hell for sure, but I'm not going to let Ne-chan down." He said that he knew tomorrow was too important to make any mistakes. Final exams were the next day. Hiruzen Sarutobi did not have a good mood. First, things were bad because Naruko had been taken away by the witch. Now, Menma is very far away and is rarely seen. Jiraiya even told him that he had the Toad Elders keep an eye on him, but even so, they couldn't reverse summon him. As if something was stopping him from getting in, even though he was still alive and his name hadn't been taken off the summoning scroll. The Sandaime Hokage was worried that the boy was losing respect for him. Menma can't see that he's doing this to make Minato happy, can he not? For the village to do well, people have to give up some things. That didn't matter anymore, though, because Hiruzen was going to fix things after the exams were over. Already, it was stressful because the newly appointed Mizukage had come to watch the exams, while the Raikage and Tsuchikage had to deal with other things first. So they could only help their shinobi from afar, while the Mizukage was mostly here to show off the power of her village and the potential of Chojuro, who was said to be the next leader of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. Also, remembering the Kazekage was important. Or at least the man in a cloak who said he was the Kage and sat down in the crowd. After saying hello to both of the Kage and taking their places, Hiruzen began to say that the tests were about to start. Welcome to the last part of the chunin exams, everyone. Where all the young people in front of you show how strong and great their villages are. As most of our rivals come from the 5 main hidden villages, including Otogakure. Please give these brave patriots a round of applause. Hiruzen said something as he heard cheers from everyone in the room. Let the finals start now, he said. Menma stood up and took a packet out of his flak jacket. Alright, everyone, before we start. Everyone should see that the fight bracket has changed. As all the competitors looked at the changes, he said. Menma Uzumaki vs Gaara. Sasuke Uchiha vs Naruko Uzumaki. Konkuro vs. Match 6 winner. Those were the only changes, and no one really cared. Except that 3 of these fighters were not there at the time. Gaara was annoyed that his opponent wasn't there to feed his mother, as he said. Everyone leaves the arena except Gaara and Menma Uzumaki. Menma gave the order, and everyone else left while Gaara stood still. People started calling for Menma to be kicked out after a few minutes. Not like Kakashi and a few other important people. People didn't know that Menma was Minato Namikaze's son. Even though only a few people outside of the village knew for sure that he was the Yondaime's child or thought it was possible. One of them was the Raikage, who knew Minato well and knew about his relationship with a certain Uzumaki woman. Are the villagers really that bothersome, Hokage? Because I swear I'm going to beat up some of these people. Made a threat. A bunch of rowdy spectators. Mei commented. Hiruzen didn't know what to say and was pretty nervous. But things started to get better when someone started to walk towards the arena. The person was a young man with medium-length hair that had been straightened. He wore a black jacket with fur around the edges, a white undershirt, black pants, and black boots. And who do you think you might be? Menma asked. I didn't want to stand around in the hot sun, Menma Uzumaki. Menma said as he took his gunblade out of its sheath and hung it over his shoulder. Menma nodded. Alright, Gaara and Menma Uzumaki can start their fight now, he said as they took their positions. Impress me, Menma Uzumaki. Gaara asked as he sent a huge wave of sand towards Menma. Before making a few shadow clones, Menma dodged each attack quickly. Menma spread them out and then made a couple of hand seals to fight the sand. Lightning style. Electromagnetic murder. He shouted as he blew up the wave of sand and turned some of it into glass. Seeing Gaara's smile, Menma kept pushing back the sand as each clone took a position and got ready. He shouted, lightning style, lightning dragon jutsu. As he drilled through another wave of sand. Make me feel alive, Uzumaki. Gaara yelled. Attack them all at once. As Menma walked away, he said. Gaara didn't know that all of the clones were charging up different types of lightning jutsus and firing them all at once at him. All of them knew that he would use his sand defense to protect himself. At the very least, they wanted to test his speed and toughness, since lightning would turn sand into glass. Lightning style, lightning dragon jutsu. The clones yelled as they all attacked Gaara at once. Gaara quickly surrounded himself with a wall of sand, which quickly turned into glass when it broke. But it wasn't over yet, because Gaara kept grinning like he was crazy even though his armor was starting to break. Gaara's pain only made him want to make his attacks much stronger and more likely to kill his opponent. Menma knew this would happen because Naruko told him about Gaara's past and gave him a psychological analysis of how the boy acts. A Jinchuriki in a rage is something to be wary of, but thanks to Kushina's scrolls, Menma was more than ready to stop a Jinchuriki before it changed into a stronger form. Gaara, on the other hand, didn't have to be able to use a second stage cloak. Even though the Ichibi isn't as strong, it brings him closer to turning into a Biju, which is just as bad. Naruko's information also said that the woman who worked on Gaara's seal wasn't very good at Fuinjutsu, which doesn't help. If I get close enough to use Ka-chan's adamantine chains to hold him down, I can hit him with the seals and knock him out. As he charged at Gaara with his gunblade, Menma thought. He told one of his clones, "Hey, I need one of you to hit the sword." "Hold still, boss," said one of the clones as he hit the gunblade with a small jutsu from his hand. "Bury me in sand," Gaara yelled, but Menma only shunshined behind Gaara, making another sand wall. Sword magic. The lightning slicer. Menma screamed as the gunblade with lightning in it cut through the sand. Sand shuriken. As he tried to hit Menma, Gaara called out. Menma cut through each shuriken with ease and then hit him with a series of blows that killed him. Renzokuken. Menma yelled as he slashed Gaara about 8 times, then slashed him again and jumped into the air. Rough divide. He shouted as a small earthquake shook the ground under Gaara and threw him away. Gaara cried out in pain as his sand armor fell to pieces. "That hurts," he said. He yelled, "That hurts." As his eyes got red. "Uzumaki, you will die." He yelled, "Mother wants your blood right now." As he started to change into his Biju form. "Damn, it's time for my backup plan," Menma said as he took a card out of his jacket and showed it to her. "Quetzalcoatl," he shouted as a storm began to form in the sky. Soon, a big, green bird with a lightning-like coat showed up. When people heard it scream, they saw the creature shoot a powerful bolt of lightning at Gaara. Again, soon as Jinchuriki wasn't ready for the summon, so it took a lot of damage. The summon then left Menma's side, and the sky went back to being a simple blue color. "I'm ending this right now," Menma said as he called forth an adamantine chain from his body and wrapped it around Gaara's body before he could heal. "No. I will not allow you to kill me," Gaara screamed as he tried to get away. It was already over when Menma put a seal on him and made a single-hand seal. He said, "Fuin Kai." And Gaara's chakra network was stopped before he passed out from being so tired. "Ring the bell. He's done," Menma said as he moved his gunblade back and forth. Genma nodded dumbly. "Winner Menma Uzumaki," he said. Many people cheered when they saw the great match. Menma hadn't even gotten a scratch or anything serious. The Suna Junin Baki was surprised at how easily Gaara was killed, and he knew that the seal put on him would be hard to break. Even though he didn't want to admit it, Baki didn't know of anyone in Suna or in their current army who could break the seal. If the boy was a real Uzumaki, Gaara's Biju couldn't be set free anytime soon. Orochimaru thought the same thing, but he still thought he was skilled enough to break the seal himself. Even though he didn't have as much faith in his subordinates because most of them had never held a paintbrush. Then there was the fact that he had already thought about how he was going to kill Sandame. So if he left now, it would raise questions and probably ruin his plans. In the meantime, Gaara was taken away, and Menma walked around the area where the other candidates were waiting. He also found Hinata sitting on his lap, and he noticed that her black leathery clothes were strange. The shy Hyuga heiress was also carrying a big sword that had to be at least 7 feet long. Menma didn't want to know why she was carrying such a big sword, so he just tried to stay calm as Hinata moved towards him. "Please come down, Sasuke Uchiha and Naruko Uzumaki." Genma said this after a few minutes of being alone, when a strange black mist showed up. From it, Naruko looked like she was wearing the same armor as she did in the preliminary rounds. Genma noticed that she was there and told everyone to wait for the Uchiha. But most of the people who didn't live in Konoha were getting tired and irritated by the wait. Even the many nobles and rich nobles were getting very angry. Even more so when Rado, who had just talked to Hiruzen a minute earlier, told Genma something new. The match between Sasuke Uchiha and Naruko Uzumaki will be moved to the very end. Genma made the announcement, and many people booed for a variety of reasons. Naruko laughed and said, "If a weak-willed man gives in to a child, that's pink eye. I can't imagine how long this village will stay around." She said it out loud, and people looked at her funny. "You're talking about your officer in charge." Genma said it very seriously. "He should have stayed out of work. I don't care much about what you or the other people in this village think." Before she joined her brother and the other people, Naruko said. While this was going on, people were calling Naruko names and making other rude comments. The nobles were disgusted. "It's crazy that they want me to pay for a single person. One that can't promise their arrival?" asked a noble who looked like he was full of himself. "No, sir, it's obvious that Konoha doesn't care what you think as long as you give them some of your money," said the noble's servant. The nobleman laughed and said, "Oh, I see. What about that Kiri ninja? He looks nervous, but at least he seems to care more about his job than about how he feels," he said. A lot of the other people who might have bought something talked among themselves. Many people thought that maybe just one person could say that Konoha's strength is weak. "What about that boy from Uzumaki? Didn't he learn to fight from the Sannin Jiraiya?" asked another noble. "Yes, madam, but he hasn't been able to call toads yet. Since Yondaime died, Either he failed as an apprentice or the sage has failed as a teacher, the servant said. The fight between Temari and Shikamaru happened soon after. Shikamaru could have won, but the Nara gave up when he said he was almost out of chakra. However, it was clear that he had the Suna Kunoichi in a position where he could have won. At least, the Nara could have won and then quit before the next game. He gave up because he was tired. The thieves don't care if you are tired. I've had enough of your bad skills. A frustrated noble said something that made a lot of Konoha merchants look scared. An outside merchant nodded and asked, "Is there a system for refunds? How can I trust someone who gives up in the middle of a fight?" They asked. Then Suzumaki and Shino had their fight, which Shino won because he was better at using his bugs. The Kakaichu had more ways to drain chakra from the Kamazaru, since her wasps could only attack head-on, which was easy to avoid. At least the potential clients couldn't complain about anything anymore. As the busty Kumo Kunoichi stepped forward, Hinata took a step forward and showed off her new personality and outfit. For the poor Kumo Kunoichi, it was a massacre. Samui was more than ready to fight a Hyuga because she knew the basics of how to do so. Some of the most important things to know when fighting one are to not use taijutsu on them, keep your distance, and not use illusionary genjutsu. But all of a sudden, Hinata got a strange kenjutsu skill and got faster. Even though she knows kenjutsu and has a strong connection to lightning. Samui wasn't quick enough to dodge the different sword blows, and Hinata was able to move quickly even though her sword was bigger than her whole body. Hinata's ability to jump so high and move so fast made it look like she could fly. Then, all of a sudden, Hinata jumped high into the air, made a hand seal, and called out, "Supernova." All of a sudden, Samui found that she could see far into space. Before she saw a big meteor crash into it, her vision was blurred by the different quantum physics formulas that were being written down. From there, it went through all the asteroids in its way, heated up, and blew a huge hole in Jupiter, the biggest planet in the solar system, causing it to collapse. So, the meteor went on its way and hit the sun, which caused it to blow up. The explosion of the sun was so strong that it ate planet Mercury right away. Venus came next, but it was destroyed long before the explosion reached Earth. Samui went pale and started to sweat because the intense heat was drying out and blistering her skin. But it was all a lie. Samui did nothing but stand there with her eyes wide open. Hinata was actually looking for a big-looking rock, which she then threw at Samui's head, knocking her out. Genma called out, "Winner Hinata Hyuga." Everyone was stunned by such an amazing show of power. But it was sad that Samui lost because a rock hit her right in the head. Another good reason to keep the forehead protector tied around your head. Hinata looked up at the other contestants and blew a kiss to Menma. Menma shivered and thought, "Hinata-chan is pretty, but her womanly ways scare me." He didn't know how badly he would be dominated later. Moving on, Chojuro stood up and fought Karui with Kenjutsu after getting over his nerves. After getting himself together and coming up with a way to stop her quick release, Chojuro was able to take Karui's weapons away and force her to give up before moving on to the next round. The crowd had to wait even longer because Sasuke Uchiha hadn't shown up yet, and Naruko laughed at Sasuke's supporters who kept arguing for him. Eventually, Kakashi and Sasuke, who were walking together, got there. Almost as if they thought that just by being there, everything was fixed. But the daimyo thought that their being late did fix something. He told his assistant, "Tell the Hokage that I want that man demoted." The daimyo thought that there was something wrong with the way people were ranked. Clients don't want to spend more than they have to on time and money. Even though the village was also meant to protect the country. Missions were a way to keep the economy going, so ninjas were seen as goods. The daimyo doesn't want his goods to be worth less than what he is asking for them. To think that after the Yondaime died, his own student thought it was okay to stop doing his work. TCH, so the son of the White Fang was fine with his father dying, but when the Yondaime dies, he's useless? Asked a noble. Maybe he never respected his teachers, said someone else. The match went on anyway. As Sasuke Uchiha and Naruko Uzumaki took their places, Genma said, "The match between Sasuke Uchiha and Naruko Uzumaki may begin." "Your place is beneath me," Sasuke said as he made hand seals with a smirk. He shouted, "Fire style, great fireball jutsu." Naruko shouted, "Blizzard," as she blocked the attack. Sasuke rushed up to Naruko quickly to use Gai's dynamic entry, but she grabbed his leg and threw him away. Sasuke got up quickly and tried to use a weaker version of Konoha Senpu, but the back of a sword hit him in the stomach. Sasuke tried to kick and punch Naruko with all his speed, but he kept getting pushed back or blocked until he was hit by an elemental attack. "Just stay still," Sasuke told the lightning, and it struck him. When Sasuke hit the ground hard, Naruko said, "Thunder." "Idiot, you stole Goken techniques, but no matter how fast you are, you lack stamina and will fall soon," she said as Sasuke was already panting. If the idiot hadn't been wearing weights, he would have been too tired to stand up and would have already fallen down. One fool tried to get Naruko's attention by throwing his drink at her. Instead, Naruko moved out of the way as the drink went straight for Sasuke's face. Sasuke yelled, "Ah! I hate diet," as he tried to wipe his face and was hit with the shield and kicked in the stomach. "Kill him. He hurt the Uchiha," yelled the other civilians as they pulled away the man who hit Sasuke. The hypocritical man yelled, "No, please. I was just helping. I don't understand. I thought we were peaceful," as the other villagers pulled him out of the village and crucified him. The stupidity made Naruko shake her head. Even the people in the village were ready to turn on each other for the smallest reasons. Sasuke, meanwhile, used this as an opportunity to attack Naruko with a new jutsu that Kakashi had taught him. But it was hard because the man had been turned to stone. The chunin was set free when a golden needle was found in a letter with instructions on how to set him free. It was strange, but they helped the man even though he had lost his fingers and couldn't help himself because he was disabled. Because he was hurt in the hand, he also had a harder time making hand seals. Sasuke had to use all of his hands to copy the jutsu correctly. So he had to work hard to learn how to use a jutsu and master it. Sasuke yelled, "Chidori." But all Naruto did was raise her hand. "Arrow," said Naruko as a huge dome of wind surrounded her. Sasuke thought the move was a weak and cowardly way to protect herself. Sad to say, Sasuke only cared about his firepower and learning jutsus. No matter how many he gets, he will never be able to beat Itachi with those. Even a high school student would know that lightning isn't strong enough to fight wind. But if it had enough power, it could push through or cancel itself out. So, Sasuke was able to push his hand far enough to get his whole hand inside. But that was as far as he could go, and even then, the wind was much stronger than it looked. When the lightning stopped, Sasuke's hand was torn and twisted in a painful way. "Eroga!" Naruko yelled as the wind pushed harder and cut Sasuke's hand even more before pushing him away with force. Sasuke screamed as he crashed into the ground and rolled across it before hitting the wall. Naruko cast one last spell at the cocky Uchiha as he struggled to stand up. She wanted to put him down. "Earth," she said, and behind Sasuke, two big stone hands appeared. Sasuke asked, "What the hell is this?" Naruko said, "It looks like 1,000 years of death," as both stone hands stuck their fingers up Sasuke's behind and threw him into the crowd. Ino and Sakura yelled, "Sasuke-kun," as he landed in their laps. Menma decided to end the fight right then so that Sasuke wouldn't get raped by his fans. Winner by ringout, Naruko Uzumaki. He shouted as everyone outside of Konoha, including a few nobles, cheered and clapped. Hiruzen, on the other hand, was worried that he was losing control of the Uzumaki twins and wanted Jiraiya to go get them after the exams were over. He didn't want the false prophecy to come true because Jiraiya hadn't told him about the change yet. But if fate did exist, it was clear that Hiruzen Sarutobi was not on its side. But outside of the village, two of Naruko's new friends were Kimimaro Kaguya and Jugo. Both of them were freed from Orochimaru's grip, though it took a while to get him to let go. Both of them realized that the snake Sannin didn't need them for their bodies, but for their skills. Naruko was different. She gave them a new life where they didn't have to suffer, and they could even leave if they wanted to. Both friends decided that it was best to stay with the young sorceress after giving it some thought. Naruko hasn't been mean to them. Instead, she's helped them improve their skills and given them the care they need to get better. Jugo was able to calm down, so he could now control the senjutsu he had taken in, and Kimamaro's illness was gone. Now, they both stood in front of an army made from the same clay that was used to make creatures like Kingu and big earth golems. Since Kingu was born, Naruko had been working on this for years. She had collected enough energy and clay to store enough clay to make more than a couple thousand soldiers. They didn't have enough training yet, and not all of them were ready. But, like Kingu, they were devoted followers, and many of the things they broke could be fixed later as long as there was enough material left. At the very least, like Kingu, Many of them had magic and used the Forest of Death as a place to train, since many of them were made for direct combat and defense. Kingu, Anna, and, surprisingly, another Uzumaki were standing next to the two boys. One named Karen, who was a kunoichi of Kusagakure and also worked for the Snake Sanin. Her original mission was to take part in the chunin exams, but one of the clay soldiers found her when a bear killed her teammates. At first, when the soldier was on patrol, he thought he could feel Naruko because of her Uzumaki reserves, even though they had been changed into mana. The soldier was still a prototype, and it quickly saw where it went wrong. So, Karen was taken prisoner for a while before she met Naruko, and Ultimisha, who was just another double in disguise, gave her a choice. Even though she was scared, Karen joined Naruko's cause because she missed her family after her mother died on a mission in Kusa. Now, she was standing with the men and Anna, getting ready to tell everyone about the next step in their plan. Kingu was the first to speak. "You know who I am and who you are, but do you know who you work for?" he asked. "Artemisia," yelled the army at once. "Good, as you know, we aren't conquerors or killers, at least not bloodthirsty ones," Kingu said to correct his last statement. "Today, we'll show how weak Konoha is. We'll kill the invaders and anyone who dares touch Milady," he said as the army raised their weapons. Then Jugo stepped forward and said, "Soldiers, what do you do for a living?" They all yelled, "Ahu! Ahu! Ahu!" Then Karen stood up and took a deep breath. "To Mordor!" she shouted. Everyone was quiet, and Karen felt like a fool. "What is Mordor?" asked Anna. Karen scratched the back of her head sheepishly and said, "I thought it sounded cool." Kimimaro called out, "To Konoha!" as they led the army to a certain place. They just had to wait until Orochimaru started his attack. From there, the army would launch their counterattack. Back to the test. Since Kankuro gave up, the first round is officially over. Hiruzen could only think of one way to get the children back on his side, or at least to make Naruko doubt the witch and be loyal to him again. At least, he thought that. Hiruzen stood up and said, "Before we start the next part of the test, I have something important to say." Everyone was quiet and listened carefully to what the Sandaime said. Naruko laughed because she knew Hiruzen still thought he could take control. The only way to kill hope was to let real despair out into the world. Menma was more than happy to agree that that was all the Sandaime deserved. "Long ago, we were attacked by the Kyuubi no Yoko. The demon itself couldn't be killed, and what you don't know is that it's been a part of Konoha's history since the time of the Shodan. He was the one who thought it was a good idea to capture and divide each Biju in order to keep peace among the hidden villages." Hiruzen started to explain. Tamari said, "Duh, everyone knows that," after being taught this lesson while almost everyone looked like a child. Chojuro muttered to himself, That's right, the last Mizukage was a Jinchuriki of the Sanbi, and we also used to have the Rokubi. Even the Shodan, who was known as the Kami no Shinobi, couldn't kill the Kyuubi. It was made of chakra and kept getting stronger no matter how much damage it took. In secret, the Kyuubi was passed down to other Jinchuriki until the night it was ripped out of Kushina Uzumaki, the wife of our Yondaime Hokage, Hiruzen said as many people muttered about not knowing about the marriage. A few people were talking about an island whore, when they were much worse. So much so that they thought that because they were born there, they were right. So, even though they wanted Minato's money and reputation, they were still good people because they were from the same village. The details are still unknown to this day. What you don't know is that Minato Namikaze had 2 children with his wife, and he used one of them as a human sacrifice to stop the Kyuubi. Their names are Naruko and Menma Uzumaki, and they are separated at birth. Hiruzen said this as a few people gasped and a lot of powerful people raised their eyebrows. Before you make any more judgments, even though you know that the Jinchuriki is an Uzumaki, I have lied to you for your own good, he said. Menma said as he jumped down from the competitors' area, "You're damn right, you old senile bastard." As Menma moved towards the center of the arena, the Junin wondered, what is he up to? Menma pointed an accusing finger at the Hokage and said, "You old man is nothing but a spineless coward who would listen to an old pervert who listens to a bunch of toads." Genma said, "Hey, kid, move back, the Hokage is trying to talk," but Menma pushed him away. "No, I'm not going to shut up and be a good little dog." Hiruzen Sarutobi is nothing but a scheming and manipulative man who lets Jiraiya and Orochimaru get their way. Menma said as many people gasped. Naruko smiled and asked Hinata-chan to keep an eye on Menma-kun while she did her own job. Hinata was interested and asked, "Is that an order?" It's a request, not just as your future sister-in-law but also as your fairy godmother, Naruko said as she left a smiling Hinata. Hinata laughed so loudly that the other competitors were scared. I guess I'm not the only one with plans, she said as she started to clean her huge sword. Masamune will see blood very soon, won't it? She was confused. Menma kept going on with his tirade. And most importantly, you lied about the status of my sister and put her in danger on purpose. He yelled. Genma asked, what the hell are you talking about, kid? Menma, I was just about to say. The old cage began, but Menma cut him off. That you lied about my sister being a Jinchuriki while you left me with Jiraiya. All the while you lied that she was fine and happy and was treated like a hero when she was actually turned into a human punching bag. Were you just going to let it happen, or were you going to keep her around until you sold her to some noble for her clan name? Or was that unless she was killed or raped first? Menma asked as many people in the crowd. The Hokage couldn't believe that Menma would think that. Menma, I wouldn't do something like that. I think of you and your brother as my own children, he said. Oh, really? Then I guess it's normal to keep your grandchildren apart. While I'm at it, I guess it's normal for one to be fed blind patriotism while the other is not fed at all and has to live like a wild animal. Menma argued. Enough. I am the Hokage. I am the Sandaime and have fought in all 3 shinobi wars. My sensei, Tobirama Senju, chose me to be the best fit for the title of Hokage. I know when I am right, and you are a naive child who hasn't seen the darkness of this world. Hiruzen yelled when he had had enough of the child's stubbornness. You are officially out of the race, Menma Namikaze. He yelled until he heard mean laughter. What a fool you were, Sandaime. Do you still think you are in charge? When everyone turned to see Naruko, she said, now you think you should be in charge. That these mutts would all of a sudden become good, no matter who held the beast. It's only natural for these disgusting worms to find another reason to hate someone because they refuse to admit they were ever wrong, she said as many villagers continued to yell at her from the stands. You are a demon regardless. Trash in a whirlpool. Foolish child. By hurting the Uchiha, you showed who you really are. You and your dirty brother are both horrible people. The Sandaime couldn't believe what he was hearing because he could still see how angry the villagers were. Shut up. Naruko's command was strong enough to send out a large shockwave that forced the crowd to be quiet. This left only the foreigners and nobles to talk about how disgusting the villagers were acting. The daimyo was anything but happy to see his villagers acting like Neanderthals. Like I said before, you're all losers. You dirty scumbags love and respect the Yondaime Hokage like he is your god. You honor and celebrate what he did by coming up with sick and twisted plans. That as long as you act like the victim, you think you are right and can't have done anything wrong. Now that the stupid ape has told you the truth, you still act like you know everything. Do you still think that you're heroes? That my brother and I together are the 9-tailed beast that caused trouble? It doesn't matter anymore because you're all worthless worms who don't know how weak and sad they are. Ha. She laughed like she was crazy as feathers fell from the sky and explosions went off in the background. Ah, the end of your time has come. No one is here to help you, so just relax and enjoy the show. You are now by yourself. Naruko said, may your sins against me be paid back with interest, because your punishment has come in the form of that snake, Orochimaru. Behind her back, a pair of wings appeared, and she began to fly. Those who hadn't passed out yet saw Naruko's armor being put on. She was wearing a purple dress with black flat shoes and a dark purple coat around her shoulders. She held a black staff. Back with Menma, the boy nodded. He knew his sister was right, but that didn't stop him from worrying about the Suna ninja that were jumping down and surrounding him and Genma. However, before they could worry about the threats, a huge golem rose from the ground and started swinging at everyone before crushing a few of them with earth magic. Thank you. It's time to clean up this place, Menma told the golem as he slapped the armor on his shoulder and sent some chakra into it. The armor itself was red and gold, and a large cape covered his back. He said as he prepared his gunblade. Just as Menma was about to cut down the first group, he was surprised to see Hinata cut off the heads of the first group with incredible speed and accuracy. She then turned to Menma with a smile to show him that she hadn't changed much. Go. Menma-kun, your sister needs you more, Hinata told the golem, which was helping her fight off the Auto ninja who were helping Suna invade. Thank you, Hina. I owe you. Menma said as he ran after Naruko, who was heading to where the other cage were. Because the cage. Mei Terumi and her guards got into a fighting stance as Hiruzen in the Sound 4 formed a barrier around them. Then, the Yondaime cage was revealed to be Orochimaru in disguise. Orochimaru! Hiruzen shouted as he took off his robes and showed his armor. Orochimaru laughed when he heard his old teacher say, "Sarutobi-sensei, has your old age made you so weak that I've become unpredictable? Maybe you were a stupid ape, like that Uzumaki kid said," he teased. "When I'm done with you, I will stop the witch from hurting Naruko and Menma," Hiruzen said as he called Enma over to him. "You don't have to spy on the village to know that the girl doesn't care about it." Orochimaru kept talking as he pulled the sword of the Kusanagi out of his mouth. "It's safe to say that the other Gaki is like his father and saw through Jiraiya's jokes," he said. But just as the fighting started, Naruko came in and stared at Saken, Yukon, who was helping hold up the barrier. The sorceress smiled and put her hand over the strange shinobi. "What do you want to do? Show me how to sign?" Saken taunted. Naruko cast Doom, and numbers appeared over the man's head. "I wonder if it will kill both of you or just one of you," she said as both men tried to hide their fear. "Hey. Lame ass genjutsu," Saken taunted. "Kai." Yukon said that the numbers should only keep going down. Naruko said, "Just enough time for my reinforcements to come," as Kingu, Anna, and a few of her clay soldiers joined her. Both of the servants said, "Milady Artemisia." "Oh, good. Did the army get there already?" Naruko asked. Anna answered as they heard explosions in the distance. "Hi, Jugo, and the others are fighting the invaders from outside the village and the stragglers coming in." In the distance, they could see a few snakes and a few big wolves fighting the reptilians. This made Naruko smile a little because she could see that one of her army's divisions was fighting the summons. "What kind of soldiers did you bring with you?" As 5 soldiers bowed, Naruko asked. "I am a knight, and I will protect you. I'm a dragoon, and I'll get to any goal. I am a ranger, and I will hit anyone, no matter where they are. I have a black belt, and I'll let you borrow my fists. I'm a wise man, and I'll curse your enemies and heal your friends." Naruko nodded when she heard Saken and Yukon scream in pain as their lives ended. When she looked back, she saw that the barrier had fallen because Saken and Yukon's position had given out when they died. When the group went inside, they saw that Orochimaru had already started to pull coffins out of the ground. Mei and Hiruzen were ready to use their jutsu on the coffins and Sannin until Naruko stepped in. "Mei-sama, please get out of the way." Naruko told Mei, who looked surprised, that this was part of her plan. "Artemisia-sama?" Mei asked. To make a long story short, Naruko made her debut as Artemisia, the apprentice of Ultimecia, to Mei over a year ago. It was during the Bloodline Purge, when the experimental clay soldiers and Guardian forces were still being tested in combat. Mei's forces quickly defeated the previous Mizukage's forces because their chakra was sealed and Gaara had trouble changing into his Biju form. It didn't help that Bahamut's Megaflare could cancel out properties like magic and anti-magic defense. The Sanbi was already strong and resistant to the elements, which made it easier since a chakra cloak wasn't enough of a defense. Mei Terumi made a small friendship and pact with the young girl, even though Naruko was wearing a headpiece when they met to hide her identity. "There are some things you should stay away from. I don't mean to be mean, but this is not your fight. So, you can leave if you want to," Naruko told the sage as she motioned for him to step forward. "Ninja art. Shadow Shuriken Jutsu." Hiruzen yelled as he tried to hit the Yondaime coffin to keep it from rising up. Instead, the sage stepped in and said, "Wall." He cast, and a big glass-like wall came up and blocked the attack, even though it cracked a lot. Naruko teased Hiruzen as more coffins came out. "Ha ha ha, Hiruzen, you won't get away with that easily." Naruko recognized them and knew what Orochimaru was going to do before it happened. It annoyed her to no end that the dirty snake would mess with more innocent people, but in the end, it didn't matter because the sorceress planned to get rid of Orochimaru for good, unlike the spineless old man the village calls a Hokage. "Naruko. Can't you see that Orochimaru is bringing the dead back to life?" Hiruzen screamed as more coffins appeared and opened. "I know, but you'll find a real reason to be afraid of the dead old man," Naruko told her as she was amazed by what she had done. The Shodem looked around curiously until he saw that his brother was with him. "Tobirama, it looks like someone used your jutsu," he told him. The Nidaime didn't like to hear that. And it looks like whoever called us is making us face Hiruzen, he said. Saru? Hashirama makes a joke about how old you are. Not right now, sensei. For a traitor has made you and your family his slaves to do what he wants, Hiruzen said as they were shocked to see who else was there. Mito Uzumaki, Hashirama's wife and Tsunade's grandmother. Nawaki Senju, it broke Hashirama's heart to see his grandson die so young. Kushina Uzumaki, Naruko and Menma's mother, even though he only knew she was an Uzumaki because of her red hair. Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, even though neither Hokage knew him or his title. Mito-chan, Nawaki-chan, you're all being played along with, right? All Hashirama wanted was for Naruko to laugh. This made them both confused. And what are you laughing about, young lady? Tobirama asked. Naruko said, there's still one person who hasn't come to the party yet. Naruko-chan? Kushina shouted as she slowly moved towards the middle. Hello, Okawa-sama. I wish we had met when things were better. Kushina frowned as Naruko said, you can blame that fool you call your husband. That's not how you should talk about your father, Naruko-chan. Kushina told him to stop. Naruko shook her head and said, then you were just as stupid as the Hokage. Did you know that Jiraiya Teme kept me and Menma apart from the moment we were born, and that the old ape told everyone on purpose that I was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki? He said. Then they should have thought you were a hero. Just like I told Menma. Minato spoke up. Naruko said, that's why you're a fool like the other Hokage. It doesn't take mastering every element, winning a war, taming a biju, or even making a new nation to notice stupidity, she said as she started her own summoning. In a matter of seconds, a large magic seal appeared in the ground in front of her. The dark magic around it started to spread miasma, which made the people around Naruko feel weak and sick. Soon, a large coffin covered in seals and chains was revealed. Tobirama thought it was a weaker version of what he had made, but it wasn't. Mito said, no, you couldn't know about that woman. Her face was filled with fear because she could feel magic seeping out of the coffin. Please tell me, Oba-san, that Naruko-chan didn't call her. Begged Kushina. Naruko laughed at the different reactions. Even the little Nawaki boy cried when he saw the coffin, even though he didn't know what it was or what it held. Who? Who does she call? Even Orochimaru was interested in the summoning, which made Hashirama ask. Well, Shodem, imagine if Madara was even more dangerous, she said. Now imagine he was a girl. Neither brother liked the idea. Hashirama laughed and blushed at the thought of a hot female Madara. Tobirama shivered at the thought because he couldn't imagine the Uchiha being a woman. Mito, on the other hand, hit her husband because she thought he was thinking about sexual things. And finally, that she was from the Uzumaki clan, Naruko said as she tapped on the coffin, causing the seals to burn away and the chains to break. Naruko-chan. How could you call someone so bad to you? Kushina asked in a panic as the power from the coffin spread out. Soon, a hand came out of the coffin and opened the door. Hiruzen went pale when he saw who had come out. Orochimaru was excited because he thought he could get this woman to fight for his side as well. Then he could experiment on Naruko to find out more about her. But his excitement turned to fear when the woman let out a killing intent that made the temperature in the room drop by a lot. I am alive. Who has called me back to the living world? The woman asked. As Ultimisha returned to the land of the living, Naruko said, I did, Ancestor. Ultimisha gave Naruko a hard look and asked, and who might you be, young one? Naruko Uzumaki, before you ask Ancestor. I'm only half Japanese, and our clan has been dead for 30 years. Uzushio has also been destroyed. Naruko replied, and then she looked around at everyone else. What are you doing here? You've been using Naruko to make her village attack you. Hiruzen demanded. I do not like your tone. Ultimisha replied as she called up different projectiles to attack Hiruzen. Hiruzen wasn't quick enough to stop them, so he got hit in different places. Saru. Hashirama let out a shout and then made hand seals. He yelled, wood style, nativity of the trees. Water style, waves of water meeting. Tobirama yelled out. Naruko and the sage used their magic to create a barrier around themselves and their allies to protect themselves and their friends from both attacks. Ultimisha, on the other hand, flew away and got away from both attacks. The old sorceress was still on guard as she put herself in a sphere made of chakra chains. At that moment, Minato showed up and kept firing his Hiraishin at the sphere. Ultimisha didn't want to stay on the defensive, so she used her chains to grab the Yondaime by the leg and throw him back into the ground. "Who are you three, and why do you want to attack me so violently?" Ultimisha questioned. "They are the ancestors of the Hokage of the village of Konoha. They were friends of Uzushio, but they let it fall in a world war. Since the Shoden's failed attempt at peace, there have been 3 world wars." Naruko answered. "Shadows of fire? And why did they fail?" Ultimisha asked, since she was about to lose her temper. "They sold the Biju like they were goods. Thought that sharing power would lead to peace and equality." Naruko said that because her ancestor didn't need to hear anything else. Ultimisha glared at him. "You fools." She yelled as her desire to kill went through the roof. The Biju aren't pets to sell. Even though they are animals, they are aware and hate people. By giving them to other people, you have given them weapons that won't stop fighting until their enemy is dead. She yelled as she used her magic. Minato tried to stop her quickly, but Naruko got in the way and shouted, "Reflect." At the last second, Minato tried to use a weak Rasengan to get his daughter out of the way so he could attack the sorceress. Instead, his own jutsu sent him flying backwards, which surprised him. "Get out of the way, Naruko-chan. You're being tricked by the witch." Minato said in denial. "You're really a fool. You think more about jutsu than you do about making sense." Naruko replied, and then she did some magic of her own. "Karaga." She yelled, and the spell hit Minato, sending him even farther away. Naruko laughed when she saw that her idea was right. As the Nidaime's forbidden technique brought everyone back to life. At the moment, they are considered undead, which makes them very vulnerable to healing magic that hurts undead fiends. Now, all Naruko needed was Menma, but he was already late. But Kushina stopped her thinking when she tied her up with her chakra chains. "I'm sorry, Masumi, but I can't let the witch control your mind," Kushina said in a frantic tone. Naruko laughed and said, "So now you're on Minato's side? You didn't seem very sure that you were going to support him when he turned my brother into a Jinchuriki and took him away from me when I was a baby," she said, since she didn't try hard to get away. "What makes you think that?" Kushina asked out of interest. "I've become strong and taken over from my ancestor. Those villagers were the ones who destroyed my chakra coils when I was a child." Kushina was very sad when she heard the news, so Naruko replied. That left her wide open for Menma to cut the chakra chain and break her hold on Naruko. "Where did you come from?" Naruko demanded. "Too many invaders got in the way, and your clay army has just arrived in the arena." As Menma got his gunblade ready, he said. "Menma-chan?" Kushina asked because she was surprised to see Uzumaki armor from a long time ago. "It's me, Ka-chan. Naruko told me the truth, and now I'm fighting for what really matters, which is family," Menma said with a serious look under his helmet. "What reality? What's happening?" Kushina asked with urgency. "Like I told you, they put us apart. I was blamed for something I had nothing to do with. As well as going through terrible things in life that no child should have to go through. All because your husband believed that the people in his village were holy." Just as Naruko spoke, a big toad hopped into the arena. She said, "Jiraiya is here, maybe you can ask him and listen to his nonsense," as the toad sage was making his way to the end of his speech. At the same time as Naruko's group. "Kimimaro, you bastard. Did you really betray Orochimaru-sama?" asked a furious Tayuya as the last Kaguya and Jugo also arrived. "I won't listen to a rat in a lab. Under Naruko-sama, I no longer have to suffer, and I can leave whenever I want. Jugo is also no longer a slave." Kimimaro answered while his old friends snarled. "You'll have to pay for your treachery." Jirobo said this as he tried to punch Kimimaro, but Jugo caught his hand and hit him in the chin with the other. "I'll take care of the fat one," Jugo said as he picked up Jirobo and threw him into the arena to fight on his own. That left Tayuya and Kitamaru alone to face Anna, Kingu, and Kimimaro. "I repay Artemisia-sama for her kindness," Tayuya said. As his bones started to come out of his body, Kimimaro said. "Alright, Anna. I'll take care of the snake and anyone else who gets in Milady's way while you help Kimimaro," Kingu said as he took out his staff and went back to the main fight. Tayuya picked up her flute and started to play right away, but the clay soldiers stopped her. "Thundaga!" yelled the sage as the lightning smashed the flute. Anna-sama, we are happy to help you and Artemisia-sama at the same time," said a dragoon. As Kimimaro fought Kitamaru, Anna nodded, grabbed her lance, and charged at Tayuya. Naruko and Menma are back. As soon as Jiraiya got there, he was shocked to see that his student had been brought back with the cursed jutsu. But instead of going through the proper steps, they ran right up to Kushina, who was still talking to her children. And now the filth arrives. Naruko says something while Jiraiya frowns. "Menma, how could you take the witch aside? She is taking advantage of your sister." Jiraiya said this as he tried to talk sense into his current apprentice. "You're the one who's crazy, Jiraiya. You took me away from my sister so you could do something crazy." Menma fought. Minato was surprised by this. "Sensei, did you really?" he asked. "I had to keep Konoha safe because I had to keep the prophecy from coming true." Jiraiya argued. "Sensei, I only did what the prophecy said because you said it would bring peace." Minato spoke up. Naruko laughed and said, "He thinks there can't be peace in the world without Konoha. Like the ape who doesn't mind using and getting rid of other people for his own ego. You think, like every other Hokage, that the village needs to have a strong army instead of trying to end suffering," she said as she pulled out one card. "Anything that can be found anywhere can be used to build a simple village. The Shoden talks a lot about family and safety, but you care more about money," she said. Jiraiya looked at the twins and said, "Well, I'm going to stop you both. I'll lock away your powers so you can never hurt Konoha again." As he got ready for another summoning, he made a promise. Naruko laughed and said, "You fool, you thought we were trying to destroy your dirty village because of all this. No, we're just taking your power away and cleaning up after you," she said, then threw the card up. "Bahamut," she yelled as Gamabunta and the Elder Toads appeared along with the big dragon. "What are we doing here, Jiraiya-chan?" Shima asked. "Naruko has always been working with the witch. Now we need to stop her and Menma, whom she manipulated." As the toads were about to climb on Jiraiya's back, Kushina and Minato stopped them. The pervert asked, "What are you two doing?" "Sensei, I don't need my wife's senses to figure out who is really crazy. I'm going to stop fighting over things that don't matter and do the right thing for once," Minato said as she used her chains to hold Gamabunta back. "Hey, who do you support?" The only thing the boss toad wanted was for Bahamut to land on him. "Bahamut, use your Mega Flare on that nasty creature." Gamabunta fell into the arena as the dragon fired a powerful white beam at him. Naruko gave the order. "Also, you may call me Artemisia. The person who took Ultimisia's place. Now, look at what he and Hiruzen Sarutobi have done. Memory compression. Changes in experiences." She cast a spell as red orbs left her body and went into Minato, Kushina, Mito, Hashirama, Tobirama, and Ultimisia. The sorceress shut her eyes and drank it all. "Now I understand." She turned to the cage and her cousin, who were looking at Hiruzen like he was their enemy now, and said, "My technique worked to some extent. Poor old man, you have no idea how much damage you've caused, and my own clan had the nerve to call me evil," she said. She said that her opponents had changed their goals. Ultimisia is now interested in what changes her apprentice wants to make to this village. Should Naruko, who is now called Artemisia, try to get what she wants? Then she should have thought about this more. Is this the end of the Will of Fire, or is it the start of something new?
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.